This is CBC Here and Now.
I think there will be satisfaction that today has happened, and we have by consent got to this point, and hopefully the next number of months will pass smoothly as we work with them to finalise their claims.
A notable handshake in court today after a judge approves a long-awaited claims process for Mount Cashel abuse victims.
We expect it hasn't gone away. Last year it kicked in essentially in May, so we're getting to be, that time again.
Biologists are once again warning the public about being careful around wild animals now that a fox has tested positive for avian influenza.
I was a little nervous, but then I was really excited because I would feel really accomplished when it was done.
It's a cross-country ski and snowshoe event with a bit of a funny name. We'll take you to the big land for a look at the Labrador Loppet. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan. We begin with some good news tonight for victims of abuse at the hands of clergy and those who once ran the notorious Mount Cashel orphanage. They're now a step closer to receiving compensation. A claims process was formally approved by a judge today, and money could begin to flow by the fall. Here now's Terry Roberts explains.
They haven't always agreed, but today they were shaking hands. One lawyer representing the Catholic Archdiocese of St. John's.
So I think we can agree to
The other, Mount Cashel abuse victims, just moments after Justice Garrett Handrigan approved a formal claims process. It's a big step in the process of putting cash into the hands of dozens of victims of abuse at the hands of Christian brothers who once ran the notorious orphanage, and those who suffered abuse at the hands of various clergy throughout the Archdiocese.
They are really, really anxious to see the process resolved and to see it done right. So I think there will be satisfaction that today has happened, and we have by consent got to this point, and hopefully the next number of months will pass smoothly as we work with them to finalise their claims.
The next step, appointing an independent officer to review the claims and rule on a compensation amount for each victim. That appointment should happen in the coming days.
People have suffered terribly in the pain they've experienced, but also in economic impacts it's had on their careers, on their education, and damages as a consequence of that suffering can be large. So we're not talking small sums of money, we're talking awards that often run into the hundreds of thousands.
It's a milestone in a legal process that has dragged on for years and only intensified after the courts ruled the Archdiocese was liable for the abuse committed at Mount Cashel. The Archdiocese is protected from its creditors by the court while selling off its vast holdings of properties in order to raise the millions required to compensate the victims of abuse. Budden has estimated the process will require at least $50 million. He's confident that target will be reached. Meanwhile, his law firm has been staffing up, knowing they will be especially busy in the coming months as they bring their clients' applications to the claims officer. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Staying with the courts, an RNC officer in Corner Brook has been sentenced to 4 months in jail and a year's probation. Noelle Late was sentenced today on charges of assaulting her former partner on multiple occasions. Crown lawyers suggested a 2 to 3 month conditional sentence and probation, while the defense suggested a month or 2 in jail along with probation. But Judge Wayne Gorman went above and beyond, citing the gravity of the offenses and the moral culpability. Well, the terminal building at the St. John's International Airport has reopened after a weekend fire. Passengers were back in the terminal today as flights started to get back to normal. A fire in the departures area on Friday closed the building until last night. About 36 flights were canceled, both by the fire and the winter storm. The airport authority says they're now working to clear up the backlog of flights.
In any kind of disruption to air service, there are going to be certain backlogs that are created, and we work very closely with our airline partners to ensure that those flights are recovered as soon as possible, and the airlines on occasion will bring in larger aircraft to deal with the backlogs that may exist. But we understand the impact this has on travelers and the public, and we do apologize for their inconveniences. I know it's a very very tough thing to have to deal with, but we worked very hard to get the terminal back open and to get flights operational once again.
The airport authority says passengers should check with their airlines for updates, and the backlog of flights is expected to be cleared within the next day or two.
Good evening, folks. Heather back with your weather for this Monday. Let's take a look at what is on the way. Environment Canada has issued a freezing drizzle advisory for much of the north coast of the island. We'll take a closer look at that in just one moment. But the weather is a lot quieter than it was when we last saw each other on Friday. I will tell you that for certain. It looks like we will have a chance of flurries for much of the province, for the island and Labrador tonight, and things do look similar again tomorrow. Again, much quieter. So taking a look at that freezing drizzle advisory now that Environment Canada has issued, you can see much of the north coast of the island from the northeast Avalon all the way up to Green Bay, White Bay has a freezing drizzle advisory. And what's going to happen as we get into the evening hours, when the temperature starts to cool down, and if we have some drizzle, what's going to happen is on contact, it's going to freeze on things, and that's going to make roadways and walkways and all sorts of things slippery. So watch out underfoot when this is in effect. Taking a look at our future tracker now, looks as though you can see some of those scattered flurries over much parts of the island. Do stay with us because we have just the best weather photo towards the end of the show. See you later.
Thanks, Heather. A stolen firearm and a disturbance inside a home are at the heart of a police investigation on the West Coast. The RCMP were called to a home in the town of Massey Drive, just outside Corner Brook yesterday. The disturbance happened early in the morning. Later in the day, a firearm was found outside the home. Police seized the gun after determining that it was stolen. A suspect has been identified and charges are anticipated. There's no word on what the disturbance was about. Meanwhile, the RCMP says the body of a missing man was recovered in Brigus. The 87-year-old man was last seen in his home in the community on Friday morning. He was driving to the local post office, but he didn't return home. The RCMP's underwater recovery team located the man's vehicle yesterday with his remains inside. It was found in the water off a wharf in Brigus. Well, to politics now. The provincial government has announced more money to keep healthcare workers working in Newfoundland and Labrador. This time, the bonus is to recruit and retain long-term care workers.
We have some news for long-term care this afternoon.
Health Minister Tom Osborne has announced a retention bonus for registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and personal care attendants who continue to work in long-term care if they commit to staying in the job for at least 1 year. There's also extra money for people willing to move here, new graduates, and retired workers. The amount is up to $8,000. Osborne says without workers in long-term care, hospitals are clogged.
As you know, the current staffing challenges in long-term care have reduced capacity in our acute care beds. The resulting impact of that is patient flow in our emergency departments, which is also contributing to surgical cancellations and reduced access to inpatient services.
Well, now to the West Coast for another healthcare announcement. The town of Deer Lake is getting a new health centre. Premier Andrew Furey was in his district of Humber-Gross-Morne to announce a request for proposals today for a 30 to 40,000 square foot facility. The new facility will bring all the healthcare services in town under one roof and will be home to a new family care team. The deadline for the proposals is the end of April. Furey says he's heard many complaints about the current healthcare clinic in Deer Lake.
I have heard concerns about the existing space for 3 years now. I've heard it loud and clear. It's antiquated. It doesn't have enough room. It's not modern. People don't want to work there. We can't expand. Patients can't get in. Well, this is an opportunity to recreate a modern space so that patients can have the care that they need while providers are working in a modern, full contained facility.
Well, meanwhile, in political announcements, Finance Minister Siobhan Cody spent a small part of last week's budget speech celebrating the province's progress on childcare. But those $10 a day childcare spaces come with some long wait lists. Many on the outside are stuck looking in and making big sacrifices as they continue to wait. Here now's Garrett Berry spoke with one parent about how they're coping.
So I'm typically home with her, which I do love because I'm home with her on Mondays and Fridays and half days on Tuesdays. And my husband does a day a week, and then we have a grandparent do a day and a half or so a week because we have no formal childcare. So this is our little kind of Band-Aid solution right now until hopefully we get into some kind of subsidy program or some kind of full-time arrangement.
Yogurt for baby. Yogurt for baby?
She's been on lists since she was born, and she's almost 2. So we're told it's probably going to be another 2 years. So she'd be almost 4. We're hoping that's not true, but every time we call, she hasn't moved anywhere on the lists, and sometimes she goes up the list because siblings take priority. So we're not banking on it, that's for sure. We're looking at potentially getting a house with an in-law suite so we can potentially help our grandparents out a little bit better because they're coming in from out of town every time they come for a couple days, which is inconvenient for them, of course. We're looking at getting, more private kind of care if we can somehow manage to get a nanny. But again, these things are so expensive. We have her in part-time care coming up, but just for the summer. And that's still going to be like $800 a month. And it's still the same arrangement we have now, just to give the grandparents a break for the summer. So yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. We're kind of winging it.
On other news, biologists are warning people to be careful around wildlife. This follows confirmation that a dead fox tested positive for avian influenza. They say that case and 2 recent deaths of swans in St. John's are a reminder that bird flu continues to circulate in the province. Here now's Mark Quinn reports. And a word of warning, this story contains some images of dead animals that may be disturbing to some.
These swans died in mid-March. The exact cause of death hasn't been confirmed, but biologists expect testing will show they were infected with the H5N1 influenza, the same strain of flu that took a heavy toll on seabirds in Newfoundland and Labrador last year.
There's been a number of ducks that have showed up dead in Bowring Park, Kitty Vitty Lake, Virginia Lake. So, who knows? It might be kicking in again.
There's also evidence that the virus can infect and kill animals other than birds. Recently, this fox was found near St. John's. After its death, it tested positive for avian influenza. A biologist who works at this laboratory at Memorial University says it's likely the fox ate an animal infected with avian flu.
My assumption would be it actually consumed an infected bird and so had intense direct exposure to the virus.
Biologists like Lang are warning people to avoid touching dead animals in the wild and to keep dogs away from them too.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone should stay away from dead animals in the environment and contact the appropriate people with the government agencies that can then come and handle it properly with the proper PPE.
They say reporting any dead animals to wildlife or food inspection officials will help them track the virus and allow them to dispose of something that could further spread the disease. Biologists like Montevecchi are paying close attention to what happens next.
We expect it hasn't gone away. Last year it kicked in essentially in May, so we're getting to be, that time again, so we're watching.
Scientists say there have been extremely rare cases of people who have close contact with large numbers of birds becoming infected with avian influenza. But to date, there's no evidence that this latest virus can be passed from human to human. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
White Hills Ski Resort is now one step closer to winning a big chunk of money. The Clarenville Ski Slope has been taking part in Top Peaks. It's a nationwide contest searching for Canada's most invested ski community. On Friday, the resort found out it made it to the top 3. The winner gets $100,000.
And all the way to the East Coast from Clarenville, Newfoundland, White Hills Resort.
And that's the moment the folks in Clarenville learned they had reached that top 3. Along the way, White Hills beat out some much bigger ski resorts all across Canada. There will be some nail biting on the slopes this weekend as the winner of Top Peaks contest will be announced by CBC Sports on Saturday.
It's surreal, to say the least. Fantastic news. I can't believe it. Our little hill in Clarenville is top 3 in Canada for invested ski communities. We're completely delighted. Call a spade a spade. You know, we're scraping by, doing the best we can, but $100,000 would go a long way into getting at some of the work at our hill that maybe we'd like to do, but we don't really have the cash or the time, the resources to pull it together. This just really would help us out. We'd like to pack the place in there. We want to have people in there to share with the excitement and really celebrate how we do. We got something to celebrate already, but if we can get it over the top and be number one, we're going to have roof repairs because we're going to blow it off.
Here now's Jeremy Eaton will be in Clarenville for the announcement on Saturday, and he'll probably squeeze in a bit of skiing, so we'll keep you posted on what happens. And still with sports, the 48th Great Labrador Loppet took place this past weekend. It's a cross-country ski and snowshoe event held in Labrador West. Distances ranging from 2.5 all the way up to 30 kilometers. Here now's Daryl Din chatted with some of the racers.
Before the Loppet started, Mother Nature threw a few curveballs. The race was supposed to start on Tanya Lake, but slob caused by warm weather conditions forced the change of the start line. Even with those issues, the races started on time. This 12-year-old racer completed the 20-kilometer race in record time.
We just did a 20K skate race. Yep, we did the 20K. We went to Dooley, turned around and came back to the White Wolf Lodge.
And how was the trails for you today?
Good. They were really good. Yep. Elf had them groomed. There was a few skew tracks, but they were quick. So.
And are you happy with your time?
I'm very happy with my time. Yeah.
And were you one of the first people to complete the 20?
We were third, second, yeah.
All right. For others, the race was about setting new goals for themselves.
I just did the 20K first time. For me, I usually do the 10K. So yeah.
So how was that doubling your length?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be because I went in, set a challenge for myself and said I want to do the 20K. I don't care what my time is. If I could do it, I'll feel happy about it. And I did it, so I'm happy today.
For many, this was their first time competing in the Loppet. You know, this being your first race, were you scared or nervous?
I was a little nervous, but then I was really excited because I would feel really accomplished when it was done.
What was it like crossing the finish line?
It was really exciting for me. I felt really good.
This couple, new to the area, wanted to try out the event and decided to do it with equipment they hadn't even seen until that morning.
Yeah, today morning was the first time we've even seen what snowshoes are.
So how did you decide on this if you hadn't seen snowshoes before?
We just, we saw it. Well, we saw the Winter Games. We got the booklet and we saw the Loppet. So we're trying to get involved as much as possible in everything. So we saw the Loppet, our schedule was open, so we said, yeah, we'll do it. Funny story, we just realized as we were trying to take off our snowshoes how to tighten them. So up until now we've been running with loose snowshoes.
Oh, that's a bit difficult, but I'm glad, that you completed the race anyway, you didn't give up.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
After the races were done, everyone had some lunch, and then the kids were awarded their medals and prizes. Daryl Din, CBC News, Labrador City.
It is dangerous, just about everything we do, in particular when you're working with the larger ships and trying to do ice breaking.
So nice to look at, but so dangerous to be near. Up next, we'll go aboard a Coast Guard icebreaker to give you a bird's eye view of clearing out some paths this time of year.
And how's your back and how was your shoveling on Saturday? We'll have some totals about all the snow that fell during our weekend storm after the break.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Bonus prize deadline is midnight, Thursday, April 6th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Before we get to the forecast, a lot of people on the weekend were still talking about those northern lights from Thursday night. And I know on the show on Friday we showed some of the pictures, but there's such a nice video that before we get to the weather, I want to show you this one from Central. Look at that. Time lapse showing the beautiful dancing northern lights. Julian Earl Photography took that. Absolutely beautiful.
So stunning. And the music Julian picked to match this video suits it just so well. And I did check the forecast to see if the northern lights would be visible tonight, but I have some bad news. Unfortunately, it looks as though they won't be visible tonight. It'll be pretty quiet for this region, but there will be something else in the sky tomorrow. The International Space Station will be visible from Happy Valley Goose Bay at 8:58 p.m. tomorrow, in Corner Brook at 9:28, Grand Falls, Windsor a minute later, and in St. John's at the same time as Grand Falls, Windsor, and it'll be 10 degrees above west-northwest for like 3 to 4 minutes. So you might not be able to see it though, because it looks like it will be cloudy with a chance of flurries here tomorrow. So
it's one thing to have great things in the sky. It's another thing to not be able to see them because there's a big blanket of cloud.
If you can see them, and that's
welcome
always...
Welcome to spring in Newfoundland.
Well, just welcome to Newfoundland, really. All right, let's take a look at our weather now. We're going to talk about all the snow that we had over the weekend. How was your driveway? I got away pretty good. I shouldn't brag because I know a lot of people had a lot of snow to clean up. And if you were in Conception Bay South, it looks like you had about 33 centimeters in your driveway there, 27 in St. John's East, a little less at the St. John's International Airport at 24, Clarenville 27, or 20, excuse me, St. Lawrence just shy of 20, 19 centimeters in Mount Carmel. 16 and a half, Small Point, that's in Conception Bay North. You got 15, St. Albans down on the south coast, 13, Lethbridge on the Bonavista Peninsula, 11 centimeters in Stephenville, 6.8. So it looks like the further west we went, the less snow that we did see. All right, let's take a look at our current temperatures now. It is about freezing in St. John's and Bonavista, feeling much cooler though when you factor in the wind chill. -4 for St. John's and -8 in Bonavista. Down on the south coast, it's a little bit warmer, 6 in Winterland on the Burin Peninsula and 3 in Port aux Basques. Feeling like -1 to -3 on the west coast and -4 right now in St. Anthony. Not doing too bad in Labrador tonight, -7 in Makovec, -5 in Cartwright. Feeling like -5 as well in Labrador City, Wabush area, and -3 in Happy Valley Goose Bay when you factor in that wind chill. And that wind chill is important because we've got that freezing drizzle advisory from Environment Canada. So you can see tonight we'll have a few scattered flurries dancing around in the overnight and as we head into tomorrow morning as well. Pretty overcast night for pretty well the entire province with scattered flurries. Let's take a closer look at tonight now. And we will have some of those flurries in St. John's with a risk of freezing drizzle that Environment Canada was talking about for the Northeast Avalon. It'll be cooler down on the Southern Avalon than it is in St. John's, but our winds will be the windiest in the province on the Avalon, with winds from the northwest, 30 gusting to 50. And we can see with these little icons here, it's really along this north part of the province that we will see some of that freezing drizzle with temperatures around -2 in central, -1 in St. Anthony as well. Down along the south coast of the island from the Burin Peninsula, Conagra, right over to the southwest coast. It looks like we will have a chance of flurries tonight. Temperatures from 0 to -1 and some flurries for the west coast as well. You also see some flurries in Labrador City, but in Nain, we will have flurries as well in Nain and Makovec. You could see about 2 centimeters in Makovec and 2 to 4 for folks in Nain for tonight. Moving on to our future tracker when we wake up tomorrow, again, overcast. We will see as we move through the days a few scattered flurries across this part of the island here from Green Bay, White Bay, almost Bay Vert Peninsula in through central and exploits that area of the province. And they'll kind of intensify for a little bit and then pass along, and then we'll have some flurries Wednesday morning down on the Burin Peninsula. So not really active other than a few flurries here and there. Risk of freezing drizzle like we talked about before. And if you do see that, watch out. It could be slippery. Break out your salt because you could end up on your behind. Taking a look at tomorrow, though, we could have some freezing drizzle or some flurries in St. John's. Again, a little bit warmer on the southern Avalon. Temperature 2 degrees, chance of flurries there. Could have a mix either or in Bonavista tomorrow. Going into central Newfoundland, it looks like we could have that risk of freezing drizzle in Twillingate and some flurries throughout central. Mix of sun and cloud down in Harbour Breton, though. For the southwest coast, you could get a mix for the Port aux Basques area, but it looks like a mix of sun and cloud in Burgeo, 4 degrees, the warm spot. Stephenville, 3, a mix of sun and cloud, a few flurries into Corner Brook, but a mix of sun and cloud back up when we go to the Northern Peninsula and Gross Morin area. You could have a risk of freezing drizzle in St. Anthony as well. And as we get into Labrador, looking like a pretty decent day. Some flurries in Lab West, in Nain, and for Happy Valley Goose Bay, it looks like we could have a mix of sun and cloud as well. So not a bad day in Labrador, all told. And for our next one, working on the ocean is a tough business on the best of days, but in winter, when the sea is covered in thick sheets of ice, which is moving and unpredictable, an icebreaker is sometimes the only option to help clear the way. Earlier this month, the sea ice was packed into St. John's Harbour, if you can remember, and I got the chance to go aboard the Coast Guard vessel, the Louis S. St. Laurent. That is the largest icebreaker the Canadian Coast Guard has, and it took us through the Narrows to crush some ice and to assess the ice so that boats could move freely. Take a look.
Louis St. Laurent is the largest icebreaker in the Canadian fleet. She's powered by 5 diesel engines which run 3 electric propulsion motors which drive 3 shafts, generating about 27 or a little better than 27,000 horsepower. Quite a capable ship, classed as a heavy icebreaker. She has made it to the North Pole on at least 3 occasions. But when you look at her size, again, she's the biggest one in the fleet, weighing in fully loaded at about 15,000 tons.
When we're looking at a port like St. John's, there's some pretty unique traffic that comes in, whether it's container ships or support to the offshore. When you see ice move in, it can become pressurized by the wind and sea, can jam it all into the harbor. So what we do as the Coast Guard is use our icebreakers to help kind of clear a path for the ships to come and go as they need to, so we don't delay any economic profitability to the country's supply chains, don't get stalled, and we can keep things moving. So we use the icebreaker almost like a snowplow clears the roads. We clear a path in front of the commercial ships so they can kind of follow behind us easily, get where they need to go, and help keep things moving. This is some ice that would have come down from the Labrador coast, most likely, pushed down, flowed through. So in that long journey, you would have seen that it became chewed up. So you'll see there's not a lot of large pans. It's a kind of a soupy mess, but there are some more substantial pieces in here which are a little bit thicker. So it indicates that it came from an area that's pretty difficult ice conditions, but just over the long journey it's gotten beaten to smaller pieces by the waves, the sea conditions, and while it's not really large pans of ice, it does have the potential that if the wrong wind conditions happen, it could put some pressure on the ice and make navigation a little bit more difficult for everybody.
If a ship is not moving, the ship is not making money, and the people on the other end are waiting for the goods to be delivered, whether it be petroleum products or just general goods that you use every day. For the most part, everybody is happy to get to their destination. It is dangerous, just about everything we do, in particular when you're working with the larger ships and trying to do ice breaking, whether you're breaking out a ship or coming into a small harbor and trying to do a harbor breakout. It is very dangerous work, and it's always in the back of your mind.
What do you call home when you can't go home again? 6 months after Fiona hit Port aux Basques with a vengeance, many residents are still asking themselves that question. We'll bring you the latest from a town forever changed by last year's post-tropical storm. It's been 6 months since Fiona devastated the island's west coast with major waves of destruction. And we have an update for you now on the people in Port aux Basques who are still waiting for compensation and what might come next for them. Take a look.
There are still, I believe it's 29 families who are waiting to receive a compensation package, but that's out of about 100 families that lost their homes. So the numbers are definitely getting down when it comes to those who are waiting. Nobody wants to be last, but unfortunately somebody has to be last. So people are, it's been 6 months, so people are at the point now where they want to know what's going to go on. But when you consider the fact that it's only been 6 months, I think things have moved really well and efficiently. But for people who have lost everything, 6 months is a long time. So it's you have to put it into their perspective as well. But yeah, the mood when people get their compensation package or they get the information, then of course they're much more relaxed and they can breathe a sigh of relief and they can start making plans. It's all well and good to make plans up until that day, and then once the money comes, then certainly you can start affecting that change that you want to do. I was talking to Mayor Button at the beginning of the week, and he told me approximately $15 million has been dispensed out to residents. So, when we're talking 50 or 60 families and, monthly stipends and help for groceries or help for a new vehicle, then that's a lot of assistance. But there's been a lot of stress around here lately. People are trying to get back to the way it was 7 months ago or 8 months ago. And it's certainly a bit of a grind. I can speak for myself and say that, I'll carry on. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, but I can't speak for everybody else. There's still a lot of uncertainty as to whether people are going to remain here, a lot of uncertainty as to whether people are going to rebuild or move away. And I think everybody has to make that decision for themselves. I'm not really sure what the vision for Port aux Basques looks like going forward. There's certainly going to be some alterations. I don't think the town's going anywhere, but I think there's going to have to be some changes in how we build, where we build, and these are things that are going to take a couple of years to be figured out. There are still homes up and being lived in that are inside the exclusion zone is what they're calling it. A little too close to the shore. Lower Water Street East was decimated by the wave. That's the street you saw the 2-story apartment building get pushed on. That was decimated, but there are still 8 or 9 homes on that street that are being lived in. So who's to say in 5 or 8 years this doesn't happen again? So what do we do with those homes before then? So there are a lot of questions, and I think it's going to take a long time before there are any answers on the horizon, to be honest.
And someday, like I said, we're all going. It's coming with me. I'm taking it with me.
Cancer took away her ability to work, but not her ability to stay positive and focus on what's important. That's why this woman from PEI has turned her pastime into inspiration. That story is up next. Now to a story about a woman from Prince Edward Island who turned her pastime into inspiration. Paula Gallant has been battling cancer since 2011. She was forced to close her business after her diagnosis, and she says she knew she needed to find some way to keep busy and focus on the positive things in life. She found that in quilting. Take a look.
That's my brother. He's going to get it. Well, I used to quilt anyway years ago, just for a pastime and everything. And of course, when I got sick, I said, well, I got to do something with my life, you know. I'm not going to give up now. So I said, I'm going to make quilts for my family, all my sisters and my 2 brothers. Then I'll make one for me. That's how it started. People gave me patches, and I would arrive home, there'd be a bag for me, waiting for me. It was like Christmas to me, to open and see what's in there. Then I made some for my grandchildren, and I love doing it, because when you're dealing what I'm dealing, why worry about it? Because, like they say, you get depressed over it, and life goes on. So going on 13 years, and I'm still here fighting, and I'm on chemo now, and I wasn't going to give up, because how do you know? It's funny, sometimes the bell goes off in my mouth. I said to myself, well, why don't I make one for me? Everybody's going to get one. I'll make one for me. Then I said, geez, I'm going to ask all my brothers and sisters, give me a piece of your clothing that you don't wear anymore, like T-shirts or whatever. And what I did, I asked them for each a picture from them. So I took the picture and I put it in the square, like it shows all the love. My family's all in that quilt. And someday, like I said, we're all going. It's coming with me. I'm taking it with me. But I got to keep warm. I mean, I just encourage the people, don't give up, because, I mean, I know it's rough out there. It's a big journey to tackle. And if you have your family and your friends and lots of love around you, you got the best medicine for you.
Well, from one pastime to another, vinyl records are riding a wave of popularity right now, with more and more people turning to the vintage format. According to the new figures from the U.S., records are selling in bigger numbers than they have since 1987. As Gareth Hampshire tells us, streaming remains #1, but the record comeback is being embraced by the music industry.
I mean, I love it because I love vinyl. I love just the feel of it. I don't know, I feel like it's the best form of physical copy, right? It's the prettiest, you know what I mean? And it sounds better, like, right? It sounds better than like a CD or a tape or anything like that. Sonically, it's just, yeah, it sounds better, right? Like even just like the sound of the needle touching the record, for me is, you know, it's a beautiful thing.
We got the neck-breaking club shaking beat for this year. We got the neck-breaking club shaking beat for this year.
This is the never-seen-before collaboration between Tachichi and Lavender, coming out next month. It's also going to be available on vinyl after the album drops in June. LPs are now outselling CDs for the first time in 35 years, according to US sales numbers. Whether it's the nostalgia, the warm sound, or the retro vibe, the format's trendy again. A big turnaround from the early 2000s when Tachichi was only doing special order vinyl pressings of his music.
But like for now, it's streaming and then vinyl. Like people buy a lot of like hip hop vinyl, especially our types of hip hop, like our underground sort of boom bap thing.
It's the same for all genres, with Halifax reggae singer Jamila also doing a short run of vinyl for her debut album Roots Girl. It's available through streaming, but it's the vinyl that feels like an achievement for her.
I like the physical contact with it, the tactile nature of it, the larger pictures. You know, I need glasses, so larger pictures are easier. Lyric sheets are bigger. I don't mind the crackle, I don't mind the hiss. There's always a nostalgia factor for me. Like I said, my first album was in 1976, so I think of my youth, I think of collecting, I think of all the stores I've been throughout the years, you know.
Well, I think it's folks who are getting back into the hobby, as well as younger folks who are getting into it for the first time. Oftentimes I'll see, you know, parents and their kids coming in shopping together, which is quite something.
Kevin Beal saw this trend coming. He founded underground hip-hop label Black Buffalo Records in 2016. Now DJs around the world spin the label's records.
Yeah, so for hip-hop artists to have their music on vinyl is that pinnacle, because that's the basis for hip-hop, right? So having your music in that medium where a DJ can then possibly remix it or play it or just enjoy it is what kind of hip-hop was all about.
Techichi and Lavender's new album will be available to stream first, given that's still #1 for music sales. But he's thrilled vinyl pressings will be available because of what those physical copies mean to him and to the fans.
Like, what looks better? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like the vinyl is just sort of like, for us, you know what I mean? Maybe it's grandstanding a little bit, but it's just like, you know, like, look at this big, sexy piece of art. You know what I mean? So
Gareth Hampshire,
CBC News.
Police in Nashville say 3 children and 3 adults were shot and killed today at an elementary school there. They say the suspect has been identified as a 28-year-old Nashville woman.
We know that she was armed with at least 2 assault-type rifles and a handgun.
The shooting happened at a private Christian school attended by about 200 students from preschool to grade 6. Police say the shooter entered the school through a side entrance, moving from the 1st to the 2nd floor, shooting victims along the way. A police officer said the shooter was confronted by a group of 5 officers in a 2nd floor lobby type area. There is a video from the school that is now being reviewed. Canadians will be looking for relief from high cost of living in tomorrow's federal budget, but today the finance minister took part in a long-standing tradition before delivering her budget plans.
Seems perfect. Can I try on the other one?
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Christian Freeland picked out new shoes to wear for the new budget, a tradition that dates back many years. She has hinted at some of what we'll hear tomorrow, including money for healthcare, green industries, and targeting grocery rebates. Thousands gathered in Edmonton today for a public ceremony honoring 2 police officers who died in the line of duty. Constables Travis Jordan and Brett Ryan were killed almost 2 weeks ago after responding to a domestic violence call. Today they were remembered at a regimental funeral.
Travis was a stellar man. He showed up for people at every moment of his career with care and compassion and without hesitation, even in the most challenging circumstances. Brett was an outstanding man and a valued member of our family. He was driven, focused, intelligent, and relentless in his service. They were both the best of us.
Many of the speakers broke down into tears talking about the 2 men. Thousands of officers from Alberta and across the country packed the hall. The city's mayor and members of the provincial government were there as well. Earlier in the day, thousands more marched through the city streets. Bystanders tied blue ribbons throughout the city to honor the officers. Well, you could be paying extra again for salad this year, or even for your burger toppings. Experts say the price of lettuce is set to go up this spring and stay up into the summer. They're blaming heavy rains and flooding in a major farming region in California. That's the same region where disease hit lettuce crops last year, leading to a spike in prices as well. We'll have more news and weather after the break. Before we get to our local weather, a reminder that no matter how much you hate the weather, it can always be a whole lot worse. Search and rescue efforts are continuing in Mississippi after deadly tornadoes ripped through the region over the weekend.
I can't get that out of my head. Every 45, 50 minutes, it just come back to me. You know, it's come to me that I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. And 5 minutes later, it was over. And I realized then that I was still here. And all I could hear was a bunch of hollering and screaming and, you know, we're here, help, help, you know, and it's sad. It was sad. It was a sad situation, but I thank God that I'm here.
At least 25 people are dead in Mississippi, and one is also dead in Alabama. Hundreds of people have been displaced from their homes.
U.S. President Joe Biden has declared a state of emergency in Mississippi and deployed federal resources to help in some of the worst hit towns. But the state's governor says that more danger could be on the way with more severe weather in the forecast.
And those tornadoes look absolutely devastating here in our province. Weather going into Wednesday is very quiet. It looks like it will be overcast with some flurries for some parts of the province. Let's take a closer look at how things are shaping up for Wednesday. Here we are. It looks like, here we go, pretty well. Chance of flurries right across the board, except for the southwest coast. It looks like you will see a mix of sun and cloud. 0 degrees in St. John's and Gander. A little warmer down on the Burin Peninsula, 2 degrees. 3 going into the west coast, but cooling off as we go on up into St. Anthony and the Straits, and 3 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay, looking like a beautiful day midweek for you guys, and 0 in Labrador City, Wabush on Wednesday. So looking like pretty quiet, but again, we still have that chance of freezing drizzle that Environment Canada has warned us about. Let's take a look at Thursday now. So into the overnight, looks like it'll still be pretty cloudy. Chance of some flurries and some precipitation here Thursday as well. Taking a closer look now. It looks like on the eastern half of the island we will get some precipitation. It could be a mix of snow or rain for St. John's. Same thing for Marystown with temperatures 1 degree for the capital city and 4 down there on the south coast for you. Looks like some flurries for Gander and into central, but moving west it looks like we'll see the sun and some sun and cloud a little bit more. Looking like we'll have some sun and cloud up into the northern peninsula and the Straits as well. Some flurries in Cartwright, and looking like an overcast day with some flurries in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and a similar forecast in store for Labrador City, Wabush. Taking a look now at our 5-day forecast, it looks like that freezing drizzle is in our forecast for Tuesday, some flurries or a mix Wednesday, Thursday, some sun and cloud on Friday, Saturday, looking forward to that. Similar forecast for Central. Tuesday, Wednesday, some flurries, looking nice. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, same thing for Western Newfoundland. But on Saturday, it looks like you could have a few rain showers. And then for Labrador, it looks as though we've got in Western Labrador pretty well a week full of flurries. Nice day Friday, Saturday, a mix, Eastern Labrador, it looks like Tuesday will be a pretty decent day for you, so will Friday. But this is what I want to talk about. This is our weather photo of the day. Look at this polar bear. He was in Black Tickle around 2 o'clock today.
He said, no, I'm tired of the snow. Don't make me shovel anymore. Why can't winter be over?
And this is courtesy of Tara Keefe. If you got any wonderful photos just like this one, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be enjoying this sprinter weather any more than any of the rest of us.
Yeah, and just a quick note about tomorrow's show.
Yes, before we go, tomorrow's Here Now, it's going to be the federal budget. So there is a budget special that's going to be airing just before Here Now, and that means we are going to start 30 minutes later, and it's a half hour. So it's gonna be the best of Here Now. We're gonna condense it all down. It's like the Campbell's soup. It's going to start at 6:30 Island time, which means
6 o'clock in most parts of Labrador.
Absolutely. Except Black Tickle. Well, wait, no, Black Tickle is on Labrador time. It's right at the border between the two. So if you're the polar bear, he'll be able to tune in.
I don't know if he knows how to tell time yet. Do you think?
Well, come on. It's about time he learned. Anyway, that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Carolyn and Ashley should be back tomorrow. So Faye will see you then.
Good night. Take care.